Hi everyone, I'm Anisha, and today I'm going to talk about learning logs, a content literacy teaching strategy. Learning logs go by many names. You might have heard learning journal, reflection log, field or lab journal, development diary, but when you boil it all down, a learning log is simply a space for students to record their thoughts and questions about what they've learned. It's a great place for them to relate their studies to real-world applications and their own life experiences. Using learning logs takes learning from being passive to actively engaging. Each log is a unique record of the child's thinking and learning. Essentially, it's a journey. Now for a moment, I'd like you guys to step back into time into the late 1400s in Renaissance Italy when a certain Leonardo da Vinci was around. Now I'm not saying he was the inventor of learning logs, but his journals were definitely iconic. It's incredibly beautiful, isn't it? I think what made Da Vinci a genius was his interest for absolutely everything. Most people know him as an artist, the painter of Mona Lisa, The Last Supper, but he was actually interested in a multitude of subjects, including science. He was known for constantly fusing art and science together, and I think without the use of these reflection journals, Da Vinci would not have been able to contribute to today's culture as much as he did. Now, I'm also not saying that all journals need to be this fabulous. This was just really an iconic example that I wanted to share with you guys that I really loved. So now let's move on to who learning journals are for. Who can use them? I think that learning journals are great for a wide variety of classroom subjects. I honestly can't think of a class that wouldn't benefit from using this strategy in one form or another. It's great for classes that are mostly lecture-based, but also really useful in classes that are more hands-on or lab-based as well. As for age groups, learning logs of different complexities can be used for the itty-bitty elementary students all the way through the senior high school students. It's even great for post-secondary students. In fact, my first time using a learning journal was in university. Really, learning logs are for anyone who is learning something or wants to reflect on what they've learned. Now you might be asking, when should learning logs be used? Since this is such an adaptable and customizable strategy, the easy answer is it totally depends. Most commonly, learning logs are used after a lesson or unit or assignment since it's mainly a reflection tool, but this doesn't mean that there aren't ways to implement learning logs at the beginning of lessons as well. They can definitely be used in conjunction with the post-lesson learning log by asking students to write down what they already know about a topic or questions they would like answered during the following unit. And then after the unit, they can do the reflecting portion and connect this reflecting to the prior knowledge they had and the questions they had asked in the beginning. This approach is really similar to using KWL charts. So why use a learning log? What are the benefits? Firstly, you can adapt them and apply them to any subject, any learning level, like I mentioned before. They're really easy to implement. Assigning learning logs also gives instructors an opportunity to see which concepts were understood by students and which ones may need revisiting. Because these journals promote more regular reading of the course material, this creates a deeper understanding of the readings. Students might feel more comfortable participating in discussions and raising their hand to answer questions, which also enhances their self-confidence. There are studies that show that using learning logs improve academic performance, especially in writing and comprehension. Learning journals also promote creativity, especially in the older grades when you can give them more flexibility in how to present their journals and what content they're allowed to include. Additionally, it allows students to think critically and evolve their thought processes as they move further in the course, learn new material, and form new conclusions. Learning logs also teach students how to create their own opinions and perspectives by making connections and building upon prior knowledge. Lastly, using a learning log gives students a risk-free space to explore, think, and practice the skills they learned in class. This point isn't on the slide, but I also wanted to mention that having a learning log is like a permanent record. It's something that students can treasure and be proud of. I've personally kept all of my learning journals. They have their own space on my bookshelf, and I love busting them out any chance I get to show off, which I'll demonstrate for you in a later slide. Here are some tips on how you can implement learning logs in your class. Decide on the format of your learning logs. Do you want them done in notebooks? Do you want doodles and illustrations, lists, connection webs? What about blogs, vlogs? Or are you going to give students a choice on the format? Give them some freedom. Next, decide on the frequency. Will it be once a week, at the end of each unit, every other day? Make sure you give your students a clear purpose. Let the students know exactly why you want them to make learning logs. Provide any materials you want the students to use. If this is going to be a physical learning log, be sure to provide notebooks so all their logs can be in one space and easy to find. This way, students can also make connections easily to past log entries. Make sure you offer examples so students know what's expected of them. This takes away some of the ambiguity and uncertainty of the assignment. Only evaluate on content, not spelling or grammar or anything like that. Making students edit their logs kind of defeats the entire purpose of the assignment. If students are afraid to make mistakes, their logs will lack in creativity and honesty. The whole point is to try new things and be curious. Lastly, as always, provide support. Let the students know that if they have any concerns or questions, they can always come ask you. Okay, so now let's take a look at some examples. This one's a lower level example slide, and if you look at the one on the right, it's probably the lowest level example I could find. Super simple. It's called the 3-2-1 learning log activity. It gives you very clear prompts. 3 things I found out, 2 interesting things, 1 question I still have. So it's very simple questions to answer, but there's still some opportunity for reflection. So this one will be good for your younger kiddos. The one on the left is still very simple. You're still giving them the prompts, but now you're giving them the flexibility of choosing which prompts they want to use because there's no space to write here. So they're going to probably have this prompt list and then be able to do the learning log in a separate notebook. So they can choose which prompts they want, and then you can see the little clouds on the side remind students like, oh, you can draw, you can write, be sure to use your colors, anything, be creative. So it's giving them a little bit more freedom, but still a lot of structure. Now, if we move on to the next slide, this is a higher level example. It's a kind of table format, 2 columns, and on one side, it's just asking them to describe the experience, maybe say the date, the time, the location, what you learned, facts. And then the column to the right is the sense-making column. This is where they're writing their thoughts on the experience, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they wonder about it. So this is a lot of flexibility. It's just an example, though. You can do a lot of different things. Now, I told you guys I was going to bust out my example. So this is mine. It's from 2016 when I was taking botany at TRU. This was I think the second time I used learning logs or lab journals at TRU, but I use them in a lot of different classes. So as you can see, I'm a huge visual learner. I cut out some things from my lab printouts. I drew a lot of things. I like to have like cute creative headings, and there's a lot of note taking, just things I notice, things that I thought were important to include. And then the photo on the right is actually I think it's the flip side of this paper. At the end of each exercise or assignment or lab, I always included a metacognitive paragraph, which is just a fancy way to say a free write. And I thought that this was really important to include. I always tried to do this soon after the lab or assignment. Like I never waited a couple weeks to do it because I wanted it to be fresh in my mind. It just gave me an opportunity to spew out whatever was in my mind, whatever I thought, what skills I thought I got better at during that assignment, what things I wish I could have changed. So as you can tell, I really like learning logs because I've personally used them. It's something I can back. It's something I truly believe in. I love to do it, and it's something I'll definitely use in my future classrooms for sure. If you found this presentation interesting and you want more information on learning logs, check out these resources I've put together. First, there's a few links with great learning log templates. I've also created a YouTube playlist with a few videos explaining learning logs and their implementation. These videos are awesome because you can see them being used by different teachers with different perspectives. Since this is a really customizable strategy, I think that this would be really useful to see different people using them. Lastly, I've shared a link to my Pinterest board of even more learning log ideas and inspiration, so be sure to check all these resources out. In conclusion, I really believe that learning logs make students excited about their education because they're taking an initiative in the learning process. It's an opportunity for us to ask students about their opinions, ideas, questions, and so much more. If you have any questions about my presentation, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'd love to chat with you about how you can use learning logs in your practicum or future classrooms. Thanks for watching and have an awesome day.